Hey guys, and welcome back to the New Tennis Era podcast. My name is Anthony Hirsch. Welcome to the podcast for this week where I will talk about the ATP Finals where Jannik Sinner got his first ATP Finals title and defeated Taylor Fritz in the final. So a repeat of the US Open final that they had, again, a straight sets victory for Sinner. Exact same scoreline from their round robin meeting earlier this week as well. I'm going to break down the final and also talk about other things going on, other things that happened at the ATP Finals, but a big portion of this podcast is going to go to the final and exactly what happened and what Sinner did well. Both players played well. Sinner played unbelievable. In a lot of ways, I feel like Sinner and Fritz play in a way that, in some ways, they probably play in a way that's pretty similar, but Sinner just does pretty much everything better. And Fritz also lacks in movement like Sinner. He's improved his movement a lot. That was on display in a big way this week, but he still doesn't have the movement now that Sinner has now unlocked. Sinner's movement is unreal on a court. I mean, not only has Sinner improved his movement in a way that it's almost unrecognizable from how it was in, let's say, 2021, 2022. Not that it was bad necessarily in 2021, 2022, but he's improved it in such a way where now it's just like the most elite of elite. And that was a big thing in this match. And also, when you have a serving day like Jannik did in the final, it's going to be very hard to beat. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. He hit 71% of first serves in, which is fantastic, particularly when you're not just rolling them in, and you're winning 83% of first serve points won. And I think Fritz had a good return day. I will say that. I think Fritz had a good return day. Sinner's serve was unbeatable. So he now has 7 of the 9 big hardcourt events, Sinner, to his name. He's just missing an Indian Wells title in his career and also a Paris title in his career. But Sinner just seems almost unstoppable at the moment. He's won 20 consecutive sets going back to Shanghai. He didn't lose a set this week. That is the first time that's happened since 1986. Even the big three never did that. So Djokovic and Federer, really. Nadal never managed to win the ATP Finals. But he's doing things that haven't been done since the 80s, when Lendl was able to win this tournament without dropping a set. First guy to do that since Lendl in 1986. He also becomes just the third guy to win the Australian Open, US Open, and ATP Finals in the same year, after Djokovic and Federer, who are, in most people's eyes, the two greatest hardcourt players of all time. So it's just some incredible things that Sinner's done. He also became only the third player after the same two guys. After Djokovic and Federer, he became the third player to have over 47 wins on hardcourt across 2 consecutive seasons. So he's just, on hardcourt, Sinner is just an unstoppable force at the moment, and he's good on grass and clay as well. So it's a bit of a nightmare. Clearly becomes the player of the year. He's won 3 out of the 5 biggest events out of the year. And with the level that he's been able to show here this week, he ends it off on a high note. It's incredible the consistency he's had. The repeat of the US Open final, Fritz was also incredibly impressive this week. His movement, his backhand, mentally he's stronger than ever. He got his 4th consecutive win over Zverev in the semifinals in a deciding set tiebreaker, which was a really great match. Really tight, exciting third set there. Fritz has been playing amazing. By far his best level ever. He gets up to world number 4, which is the first time since Andy Roddick in 2007, I'd like to say, that an American man has been in the top 4 in the world. So Fritz with a really good week, but it is Jannik who is just on a completely another level from Fritz. According to the ATP website, the stats show 28 winners and 9 unforced errors for Sinner. But I just have to say, Fritz played extremely well too. Fritz hit 8 aces in 2 sets. He hit 75% of his first serves in. And he won 7 out of 8 net points. So a lot of things that used to be problems for Fritz, like the volley, like net play, craftiness, etc., like a lot of those things, he actually did quite well. The problem was that Fritz just played a couple of bad service games. Just a couple of bad service games with some bad, poor choices. Sinner really played some really great return games in those service games, but just some things Fritz could have done better, and I will talk about that in the key moments. But, I mean, despite how well Fritz served and how well Fritz played, when you hit 14 aces across 2 sets and win 83% of your first serve points, you're gonna be hard to beat for anybody. So when Sinner can outserve a guy who's very well known as having one of the greatest serves on tour, completely outserved him, it's going to be almost impossible to beat Jannik, who is so complete. He has pretty much every other shot going for him as well. I would say that I think that Sinner's improvement on the serve from before Canada last year, when he went from platform to pinpoint on his serve, is the one of the biggest changes and improvements in the history of men's tennis for one player. It is night and day from everybody talking about how much Sinner's struggling on the serve, and then to him tinkering it, and then now it being the weapon that we saw it being all week this week. So, fantastic, and Sinner does once again beat Fritz in the final. And I will, just like the US Open, and I will go over the key moments now that I felt like were some of the biggest moments in the match. So, let me start from this first set here. So 3-3 was an absolutely pivotal game. The first game where Sinner broke Fritz. It is a marathon game, one of the most important and most pivotal games of the match. Honestly, I'd say probably the number one most notable game of the match. So Fritz has lots of backhand errors in this game. The backhand really let down Fritz at pivotal moments, despite the backhand having so much improvement this year, all year. Even since the Australian Open this year, I felt like Fritz, with the win over Tsitsipas at the Australian Open, and then the long 4-hour match against Djokovic in the quarterfinals, I felt like his backhand was as good as I'd ever seen it from Fritz, particularly the backhand down the line. I felt like this week, as good as I've ever seen Fritz hit the backhand. The improvement's been great. But in this match, that backhand really let Fritz down in the key moments. And I don't know if it's the confidence off the backhand. He definitely has more confidence off that forehand side, in my opinion. But for whatever reason, that backhand was just not there for him. And also, it probably also goes to show how good Sinner's backhand is on the other side. And yeah, I think we'll get into a little bit more of that later. But yeah, so he has 2 poor early backhand unforced errors, one to the net, and then the next one he gets too much height over the net, and it goes way deep behind the baseline and goes out. That gets him to 15-30 Fritz, a couple of bad backhands. And then at 3-3, 15-30, he has a pretty short first serve that allows Sinner to get into a rally. And then he actually gets a pretty simple, easy forehand, which he just pulls long inside in. He just forces it a little bit too much. It shows that Fritz really has to play outside the skin when he plays Sinner, and has to force it. He doesn't like just playing his game from the backcourt because he feels like he can't. He has to overhit and play outside of himself. Fritz actually wins the next 3 points and gets to game point, but with some good shots as well. It shows the next 3 points really show the quality that Fritz was playing with. He hits a good serve, then he hits a backhand going back behind Sinner as Sinner explodes out of the corner, running back to the middle of the court, which is very good. He hits an ace. He gets into a great rally with Sinner with great depth off both sides. That lands a Sinner kind of forced error, kind of an unforced error, somewhere in between. But then once again, some backhand errors mess Fritz up again. He hits a double fault, gets back to break point. This break point is honestly one of the best points I've seen Fritz play in his career. It shows the quality of level that he was playing at. It shows the improvement he's had on the backhand. It shows the improvement in the craftiness of Fritz. It shows the improvement in the defense and the movement. It shows this rally was incredible between the two players. But to save this break point, at one point he gets this backhand flick running backwards behind him, almost a half volley running backwards. Really great rally that Fritz was able to win, and shows how strong he is in the big moments as well. Really playing off survival instinct, because this was a really important game. He brings it back to deuce, but then Fritz doesn't even do much wrong. But Sinner, with everything that Fritz can do, Sinner can do better. Everything you can do, I can do better. Because Sinner starts hitting some really stunning backhands, just some great winners out of nowhere, despite great depth from Fritz. Sinner is just able to stay on the baseline, and just better depth from Jannik altogether. And then he also has the craftiness, Sinner. Just like Fritz had to save that break point, Sinner is crafty, and he hits this really deep backhand inside that lands deep on the baseline, and that sets up a forehand drop shot that Sinner hit to get the break for 4-3, and that's how Sinner broke. Fritz. At 5-4, Sinner misses a forehand wide on his first set point at 40-30. That leads to another deuce game on the Sinner service game. Like I said, I mean, Fritz had got to deuce a few times on the Sinner serve. I don't think this was a bad return day by Fritz, but Sinner was serving outside of his head. But Sinner then hit another forehand that was just really off kilter, really kind of loopy and high. And then Fritz, again, with the improvement off the backhand, hit a backhand winner down the line. That gave him his one and only break point of the whole match. Fended off with an ace by Sinner. Or not an ace, actually. It was fended off with a big serve out wide, I should say, that Fritz hit a shot into the net. Not an ace, but a service winner by Sinner. Incredible serve. Very, very, very big serve. Right into the corner. First serve, just put away just like that. Fritz is, by the way, having a very, very, very close return position. I don't know if he wants to tweak that for the future. It worked for him okay, I felt like. Even at 30-15, he actually had a very similar serve to this that he deflected, standing like pretty much right on the baseline off the backhand side. And then after that, he hit a backhand down the line winner. So he hit a couple backhand down the line winners in this game. But and he was doing okay with that return position at first, but he's standing very close for a big serve. I don't know if that's something he'll want to tweak for the future, but for this specific point and a few points like this, it was very hard for him to return the Sinner serve with great effectiveness. And then on the next point, Fritz hit a backhand to the net. Once again, Fritz's backhand just kind of deserting him on important moments. And I just felt like he didn't have the confidence from the back of the court. On the backhand, off the forehand, he wasn't hitting a lot of errors, but he was hitting more errors than Jannik, and he was definitely he definitely probably I felt like he couldn't just play his game and win. He had to play Jannik's game. He had to play like somebody else entirely, and that just was never going to work to play completely outside of himself. So backhand's letting Fritz down on important moments, and then Sinner hit an ace out wide. So Sinner also just serving way too insane. First set stats, by the way, Sinner 78% first serves in, 90% of first serve points won. If you want a stat, so there you go. I want to go to the other game that Sinner broke, because I think that's another key moment in the second set. So Fritz is actually leading 30-love. Sinner won the absolute best in the world at climbing back in games. He never gives up on a game, I feel like. At 30-love, Fritz hits a double fault. Rookie mistake. Even at 30-love, you don't have a cushion against Sinner. 30-15, Sinner hits just this crazy deep backhand return off a very, very, very big first serve. I think Fritz's biggest of the match. Fritz was hitting 140 miles per hour serves at some points, but this was one of them. But Sinner just absolutely just hits this backhand that just goes right back to Fritz's feet right away. Kind of like a Federer-esque return of serve off of Roddick, for example, where he would just return big serves and get it right back to the feet of the server. And then steps in out of nowhere on a forehand winner down the line, redirecting so well off of both sides, hitting big shots, great depth. 30-all, as the game is just quickly getting away out from Fritz out of nowhere, he makes a horrific decision, hit a drop shot. It was the wrong shot anyway. He tries a difficult one, which is a forehand one cross court from the middle of the court. He actually has a chance to go big on a forehand, stay in control here. But once again, I just think it shows how scared he is from any position to face Sinner from the backcourt. So Fritz brings it to deuce, but then Sinner just plays an absolutely obscene point at deuce. Once again, like I'm saying, from the back of the court, Sinner is just outplaying Fritz. Fritz isn't playing bad, but Sinner is outplaying him. The way Sinner redirects the ball is just absolutely insane. Fritz gets the shot that's like right in the middle of the court with a lot of good depth and pace to the Sinner backhand, and Sinner just hits a backhand inside out perfectly to the sideline with a lot of pace just out of nowhere. It was as if he was I guess, like hitting a forehand cross court from an angle way out wide, but he hits this backhand just out of nowhere. Rarely seen anybody redirect the backhand as well as Sinner can do. It's really incredible. He has this kind of insane ski slope balance to maintain his position in the court and go for shots like that, to stay inside the baseline and remain in advantageous positions and keep generating pace off the ball and stepping in and redirect incredibly well. So Fritz then just misses a bad forehand on break point, but I just feel like lousy game altogether from Fritz. Honestly, a shame. Sinner played amazing at times, but Fritz, I feel like just very few patterns really working very well in Fritz's favor here. Just a lot of things going right for Jannik in this head-to-head altogether. And also, by the way, that forehand that he missed on break point, a forehand inside out, just like the drop shot. When he hit a drop shot, he really he should have went for a forehand inside out, and I just feel like he didn't have the confidence to go for that shot. So just not enough confidence from Fritz off the forehand side. And then the last kind of moment that I want to mention this match is at 5-4, 15-all. I felt like this was kind of the last kind of virtually this was where I felt like it was game over, because Fritz was in a very good rally here. He just brought the last service game of Sinner to deuce. He was in a big rally here. He could have gone a 15-30 advantage, at least keep fighting here. But they play a backhand-to-backhand rally, one of the longest rallies of the match. This is like 18, 19 shots, something like that. They're exchanging backhand-to-backhands, hitting big backhands. Fritz is playing amazing here, but Sinner just does everything a little bit better. Sinner's backhand just getting in with such great depth, which eventually causes Sinner's backhand to fall just a little bit short, and then Sinner hits a forehand winner that catches Fritz off guard, and and then gets a 30-15 and then serves out the match. So just despite Fritz playing really well, and Fritz was playing really well, Sinner just does everything just a little bit better. And Sinner, by the way, has still not lost in straight sets all year. He's won at least one set in every single match he's played this year. He could become just the second man to have a season where he doesn't lose in straight sets. The first was a little-known guy named Roger Federer, who, not that well-known of a player, named Federer, who in 2005 he didn't lose a single match in straight sets. But yeah, he could become the second man to have a season like that in the Open era, and he could actually become the first man in the entire Open era to have every single match at least go to a deciding set. So even if he loses the match, he'll at least go to a deciding set. That's because his two losses in Grand Slams, where it's best of 5, went to 5 sets against Medvedev at Wimbledon, and at Roland Garros against who was it? Against Alcaraz, of course. So anyway, so those are a few stats. So he could become just the second man to not lose in straight sets all year. And not only, he's barely been losing at all. He has a 70-6 record. And he still has Davis Cup to play. So we'll see what happens at Davis Cup. But yeah, there you go. Just some stats on the match. And Sinner played fantastic. Fritz played very well too. And that leads me to the power rankings. Number 1, Jannik. We have not had a power rankings where he's not number 1. That is because Jannik Sinner is the player of the year and the best player in the world. Sixth week in a row at the number 1 spot. Number 2, Taylor Fritz moves up. Taylor Fritz moves up to number 2. He moves up 2 spots to number 2. And I just felt like it was right. I was considering keeping Zverev at number 2, but I decided to go with Fritz at the end of the day. He's been so good recently. US Open final, ATP Finals final. It's hard to put anybody other than Sinner above him at the moment. And I spoke about all the things I think he's doing really well, and he is playing really well. This week, I think, was some of the best tennis he's ever played in his life, if not the best tennis he's ever played in his life. Number 3 is the guy that Fritz has beaten 4 times in a row. That's Sasha Zverev. He had a good week as well. He was playing some incredible tennis earlier in the week, and obviously he just won Paris. But Fritz holds his number, and too many errors from Zverev in that tiebreaker, deciding set tiebreaker against Fritz in the 3rd set there. So I'm going to give Zverev the number 3 spot. Number 4 is Alcaraz, who holds his spot. It started off real dodgy against Ruud, but then he played a really good match against Zverev. In his last match, he beat Rublev, who hasn't been playing that great, honestly, but still, Alcaraz found a little bit of a better level, but he deserves to be at number 4. Number 5 is Djokovic, who goes down 2 spots. He just hasn't been playing, but he still deserves to be high because he has been playing well with the Olympic gold, Wimbledon final, Shanghai final, so he deserves to be somewhere up there. Number 6 is Karin Khachanov, who holds a spot. He didn't play. Number 7 is Draper. He didn't play. Number 8, Casper Ruud comes into the top 10. He had a great week. Casper Ruud had a fantastic week. I think he becomes just the second man to get to the semifinals of every single ATP Finals that he's played, having played at least 3 ATP Finals. I believe the other one is Lendl. The other player is Lendl. I'll have to double check on that. But Casper Ruud, fantastic level this week. Played so well against Rublev, played so well against Alcaraz. And once again, I know Alcaraz was not feeling well in that match, but I still felt like Ruud had to earn that victory, and he played really well. So Ruud is in the power rankings at number 8. Number 9 is Hugo Humbert. Last tournament he played was Paris. Number 10 is Alex de Minaur. Tough week for him. He played Sinner and Medvedev, who were absolutely playing incredible in both the matches they played, and then he played a really great match against Fritz, which he also lost in 3 sets. But all 3 of those guys, some of the best players in the world, so just like the players in this tournament should be. So, player of the week, Jannik Sinner. I don't really have to say much more. His movement, his serve, his everything, he just looks unstoppable at the moment. Really excited to see what goes down next year. Really excited to see what goes down next year. Is he just going to dominate the slams next year? Is he going to win 3 out of the 4 slams? Is he going to win all 4 slams? Is he going to win 2 out of the 4? Is he not going to win a single slam? Who knows? But it's going to be interesting to see how many slams he wins, how many Masters he wins. Can he keep dominating? Can Alcaraz actually be the guy to step up? Are there going to be other guys that step up? So it'll be interesting. Match of the week, I say, is actually, this might be surprising. I went with Zverev defeats Alcaraz in straight sets, round robin. Straight sets match, but I felt like the level was exceptionally high. The first set was very good and very exciting. And Alcaraz played really well in this match, actually. Alcaraz it makes any match just a little bit more fun than most matches when he's playing well, and it was a really compelling match to see Alcaraz take on Zverev. He struggled against Zverev in the past, and on indoor, Zverev is the favorite. Alcaraz is usually the favorite in almost any match he plays. I'm not sure it was the case here, and Zverev did end up winning in 2 sets. Honorable mentions to Fritz defeating Alex de Minaur. This was originally the one I was going to choose. Fantastic level and rallies between both. This was a really great match. De Minaur played extremely well in this. That's why he stays in the power rankings. He played extremely well in this match. Was finally able to show why he was there. Why he was there at the ATP Finals with the level he was able to perform here, and he's able to take sets off of these guys. He played exceptionally well. And also Fritz defeating Zverev was also an honorable mention that I want to say. Shot of the week, I go with a one-handed backhand pass that Casper Ruud hit against Rublev. Ruud's shot making is underrated. I just want to say that. Ruud is a talented guy. Hits a one-handed backhand pass. He was in a squash shot way out wide on the deuce side. Hits this incredible squash shot that skids really low as Rublev storms the net. I think he's surprised that Ruud is able to get such an effective shot back, as Ruud was on full defense here. Then Ruud runs the entire court down and hits this backhand flick passing shot running the other way. So really incredible shot there from Casper. I thought it was the shot of the week. And I want to finish off the podcast talking about tennis culture, the culture segment, where I go over off-court stuff, different stuff that isn't really results this week or anything like that. And I just want to I want to have a conversation about men's tennis, and is the top 10 downgrading or upgrading? How does the next era look? Is it weaker than it was 10 years ago? Because I feel like that's a big conversation nowadays. Is the top 10 weaker than it was 10 years ago? So I wanted to talk about this. I haven't really planned any kind of, I don't know what my opinions exactly are, but I just want to take a look at this because I've seen a lot of people talking about this and exactly what I think about men's tennis and the state of men's tennis in the top 10 specifically at the moment. The first thing I'll say is I think the depth in men's tennis is quite good in terms of the top 100. I think if you look at the top 100 as a whole, the men's tennis is actually in a very good spot at the moment. I think the level is extremely high as you go, like there's so many dangerous names. Like a guy like Brandon Nakashima is 38th in the world. Nakashima is very, very good. Jakub Mensik, 49th in the world. Marajan, 58th in the world. Like these are guys that I think can beat players on their best day. Dusan Lajovic, 81 in the world. Echeverry, Arnaldi. These are players that I look at and think, wow, those are really, really, really good players. That's my opinion. I think it's like Safulin as well. Like those are players who are very, very, very solid, and who I am very high on. Sorindalo, 30th in the world. Mahac, Korda, Artur Fils, Hachinov, Jack Draper, Humbert. So when you're talking about players outside of the top 10, I think actually the depth is quite good. That's my opinion. I'm not going to say it's absolutely unbelievable, but I'm going to say it's actually quite good. Like, I'm looking at the players outside of the top 10 10 years ago, and you know, Paolo Lorenzi. I don't mean shade on these players, but I just want to say, like, a lot of these players. Well, now I've just only mentioned Paolo Lorenzi. Shout out to him, but like a lot of the players. When I'm looking at the top the players outside of the top 10 a long time ago. Like, let me just name the players who are, let's say, like 30 through 40 in the world in 2014. Then let me look at 30 through 40 in the world now. So 30 through 40 in the world then, you have Pablo Cuevas, Lucas Rasol, Santiago Giraldo, Fernando Verdasco, Martin Clizon, Sam Querrey, Garcia Lopez, Steve Johnson, Yinsen Liu, Dominic Thiem, Benjamin Becker. Now you have Cerundolo, Mpechi Pericard, Kaboli, Borges, Bublik, Bertini, Jari, Arnaldi, Nakashima, Echeverry. And Talon Greekspor. Greekspor, Echeverry, Nakashima, Arnaldi, Berrettini, Kaboli, Cerundolo. I mean, these are players that are exceptionally good, and the players in 2014 are very good as well. But to me, it's clear that there's been no crazy improvement in players. No offense to the players from 2014, but there's been no crazy improvement in the players outside of, like, let's say, the top 10. That's my opinion. Now, but if you go to the top 10, then things might get a little bit more interesting. So it's very hard to compare levels in general from players playing 10 years apart, but yeah, I mean, top 10 years ago, we're never going to see an era where we have prime Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal playing at the same time again. But then you have Wawrinka, Nishikori, and Murray as well. Wawrinka, Nishikori, Murray, Berdych, Raonic, Cilic, and Ferrer. So that's the top 10 before Sinner, Zverev, Alcaraz, Fritz, Medvedev, Ruud, Djokovic, Rublev, de Minaur, and Dimitrov. I will agree that the top 10 2014 is definitely better. There's no doubt. Also, Del Potro at that time is around, Dimitrov's around, Tsonga's around, and there's a lot of great depth in the top 10. So I would agree that the level was higher overall 10 years ago. Now, that being said, this isn't a weak era. This doesn't mean that the players winning titles now are unimpressive. These are still incredible players who are some of the best athletes and players in the world, which I guess is obvious in some regards, but should be said. So, but I will admit that I think the top 10 was stronger back 10 years ago. Now, what does that mean for men's tennis particularly? I don't think it means a whole lot at all. The way that Alcaraz and Sinner are playing, they're clearly, some people are saying they're playing some of the best tennis anyone's ever played. I think they are playing some of the best tennis anyone's ever played. I don't know if they're playing the best tennis anyone's ever played, but there are still players who are playing absolutely phenomenal. You saw the way Fritz was playing last week as well, and the way that Zverev can play, the way that Medvedev can play, the way that Novak can play. We saw that at the Olympics. And the way that Dimitrov can play when he's at his best, the way de Minaur can play when he's at his best, the way even guys like Tommy Paul and Jack Draper, Hugo Humbert. And that brings me to another point, that the top 10 is going to change soon, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Some people might disagree with me, but I think the top 10 is going to change soon. You're going to have players like Jakub Mendzik, Jack Draper, who knows who else, Runa maybe, or like we have a lot of young guys, Artur Feast. Like we have different guys who could get into the top 10 very, 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 very soon. Ben Shelton. So the top 10 is going to change very soon. I think that the young guys are very exciting, not just in their quality of play, but their style of play. Like Musetti is fun to watch. I think men's tennis is not in a bad state. Sinner Alcaraz is an incredible rivalry, and I've said this before, but I think right now I will say that I wish the top 10 seemed higher in level when you're looking at them as a whole than they are at the moment. But I don't think the future of men's tennis is in a bad state at all, and I think the depth is very, very good, and I think that's arguably more important when you're looking over the next 3 or 4 years than anything else, because those are players that can win big titles and rise up in the rankings and maybe eventually get to the top 10 and challenge the players in the top 10, etc., etc., etc. So I think the depth is the most important thing, and yeah, I think the depth is strong, and there are a lot of players within that depth that can get to the top 10. I'll be surprised if Mendzik isn't in the top 10 within the next 2 or 3 years. I'll be surprised if Artur Feast doesn't get in the top 10 within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'll be surprised, if Jack Draper doesn't get into the top 10 next year. Like, we're going to have a different top 10, and those are players that are very, very good and very exciting. So I think the level is going to keep going up. Just because men's tennis is in a current place right now doesn't mean it'll stay like that. These are all still great players, but I think the future looks maybe more exciting than the present. But I think the depth in the top 100 is a good sign. So I think a better focus on that and the young guys that are killing it, honestly, across the board. I think there's so many good players. Even like Matteo Arnoldi, who I mentioned earlier, like the fact that he's outside the top 30 in the world, like that's insane. He's such a good, complete player. Those players are only going to start rising up. So I think that shows that men's tennis is in a good way. So anyway, I'm going to have more stuff coming up, maybe about the year end, more predictions for 2025. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming, so keep your eye out on Quality Shot Tennis. Thank you guys for joining in for the channel, for all your tennis commentary. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff, more stuff coming up, and I will see you guys at the next one.